Hey, welcome back to the Casual Horror Minisode, the mini episode where we talk about episodes of miniature. Oh shit,
You
that's
trying to
all
do
porn on
my
me.
thing?
No, I was just
Because you
no.
just biffed
When I
it
said
really
episode
bad.
twice by accident, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to say an episode where we're going to talk about an element of horror. But instead I said episode again. But here we are, and we're going to talk about found footage movies.
Yeah.
This upcoming episode, we're talking about Hell House LLC, which, since it's our first found footage movie, we just kind of want to talk about it because, unlike gothic horror, which is something that has there's a lot to be talked about, found
Hundreds
footage
of
just
years
has
of
this
history.
exactly hundreds of years of history. Found footage really hasn't been popular for more than the last 20 years, and it really hasn't been a thing, all said and told, for more than the last 40 years.
Do you
for the most part, you know?
Do you think that there exists found footage like literature? Because I was about to say it was impossible for the genre to exist before the existence of like readily accessible, handheld cameras and such that regular people could use. But now that I'm thinking about it, what if somebody published a book and was like, I found this book in a cabin in the woods?
I mean, I don't want to put Frankenstein on blast again, but the whole thing is just a book about someone else's story.
That's kind of how Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde flows as well. It's all about like finding his diary and figuring out what he was doing. Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I guess thanks for nothing, gothic horror. You came in here and did it again.
Damn it, with my new idea that I just came up with, all I was doing was reinventing classic horror literature.
But yeah, for the most part, this is something that couldn't exist until recently, even if we want to get into the technicalities of, yeah, sure, there's certain things that you could call that.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that. That's dumb. What we are going to talk about, though, is a real quick timeline of some big moments in found footage.
Yeah.
Now, while I said it's only been a big thing for 20 years and maybe only existent as a thing for the last 40, I am going to go back to 1961, which is way outside of that time frame.
That was 60 years ago.
That was 80 years ago.
What?
No, shit. I confused my numbers. We're going to ignore that I said that.
The one time that I managed to do some math right on the first try, and here you are.
And here I am just like, no.
No,
Anyway,
that was 80 years
1961,
ago.
the movie The Connection came out. And this was, to the best of my research, which, by the way, found footage is really hard to research when you don't have time to read things and you have to rely on people doing videos about it. Because you know what? People don't really talk about found footage as a genre. People talk about why. I found 3 videos that were like why found footage is the worst thing to ever happen to horror, and people doing like a tier list of their favorite found footage movies, and that was it. Right?
Oh.
Which was disappointing, if we're being honest.
That's the two genders, loves found footage and hates found footage.
Exactly. So, in the brief bit of time I was able to actually look into this, this was the oldest found footage movie that I am aware of.
Okay.
At the beginning of the movie, it talks about how it was found footage put together. Which honestly is kind of interesting because the brief summary that I see of it, it's a documentary filmmaker wants to watch some, junkie jazz musicians hang out, play music, and just see
shoot
them
up
live.
heroin, apparently.
Apparently. So yeah, that's our first example. Our next big example is Cannibal Holocaust. Now, I got to be honest, I have zero desire to ever watch Cannibal Holocaust.
I have a specific desire to avoid it. Yeah.
No, I can agree with that. It is not a movie that I'm ever interested in watching. It's kind of up there with like Serbian film in the realm of I don't really feel like I want to see this. I don't need to see this to
or like
to appreciate horror.
Or 120 Days of Sodom or something like that.
Yeah, I just learned that exists recently, and I got to be honest, there's nothing that I want to touch less.
It sounds fucking bad, doesn't it? Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that just doesn't need to exist, and those movies are some of them.
Yup.
But anyway, Cannibal Holocaust was something there. It did something that really ties into the next movie that we're going to talk about, which is it had a really interesting marketing gimmick, which is that the director told his actors to go into hiding for up to a year after the movie came out. Which actually, ironically enough, got him brought up on murder charges. People thought that the movie was real, which is what he wanted. That's why he had his people go underground.
Sure.
But real people, not just like the average moviegoer, like authorities thought it was real. And he almost went to jail for a long time. Now, of course, the actors walked into the court hearing and it's like, oh, well,
Like,
they
Your
are
Honor,
clearly not dead.
He didn't kill us.
Exactly. So, like, you know, he gets off on that. But the fact of the matter is that was a very interesting ploy that he actively played into.
Perhaps the best form of marketing that movie could possibly receive, actually, is just the knowledge that the director was charged with the murder of his actors because the movie was so convincing.
Exactly. Good angle, I suppose. If that's your scene, good for you.
No such thing as bad publicity.
Well, to a
This
point.
movie has a lot of bad publicity. But I mean, it's
Has enough
because of
bad
that we
publicity,
know
we're
it
not touching
exists,
it.
right? And
That's also true.
if
It has
everybody
a
knows
very
about it
strong
because of
cult
that, you've got a
following.
better chance of people checking it out because some people are gonna be into that. I'm not, but
Exactly. Speaking of great publicity, y'all might know about 1999's The Blair Witch Project,
we might.
which is, in fact, what kicked off the found footage boom of the 2000s, I would say. The 2000s are a wild year for horror in general. Because of 9/11, actually, 9/11 plays very heavily into that. You know, big bad thing happens. People are looking for like some comfort content.
There's a lot of
and if it's-
scare in the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm. And like that was the year 2001 was one of the biggest years for haunted houses and things like that ever.
That's very interesting.
People are already scared and they want their scare in a controlled, I know what's coming to me fashion.
Right.
There's a whole lot of information about this where people say it a lot better than me.
I didn't even know that was a thing, so I'm going to have to go look into that.
Oh, I would heavily recommend Dead Meat Podcast has an episode about in its earliest episodes. So you're talking like in the 20 and earlier episode. They have a few things to say about that specific like boom of horror. It's very worth listening to. It's really enjoyable.
Okay.
A lot of fun information.
I'm going to check that out. Yeah, I just watched the Blair Witch Project for the first time
Yes.
the other day.
I was trying to remember how I derailed into that when Blair Witch was in 99. And now I remember.
Well,
Continue,
right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just watched it for the first time and sort of like my history with the found footage genre has been apparently only watching the worst ever made found footage movies. I'm starting to find, because every time that we come across one that is like, you know, well received and people think that it's good and Noah loves it, it's one that I haven't seen. And all the found footage movies that I've seen, with very few exceptions, have been like absolute trash. So I kind of went into Blair Witch Project with a bad taste in my mouth about it already because it kicked off all of that. And
That's super fair.
yeah, and it was simultaneously better and worse than I was expecting. I think I like it better than the first Paranormal Activity, which we will get to in a minute.
Mhm.
I think the characters are more likable and understandable for the most part. And the way that they act in weird situations is it feels very realistic. It feels like the way that people would actually be in their situation. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but there is one scene where they come across some weird stuff in the woods, and the one character wants to get good footage of all of it, but the other two are immediately just extremely freaked out and insisting that they leave as soon as possible.
Mhm.
And
Much like people who went in to film a documentary about something they didn't think was real and then started finding evidence
Yeah.
would do.
And like they definitely think that it's just they don't think that it's a supernatural force. They think it's just like some locals fucking with them or something.
Yeah.
But even so, they are extremely freaked out about it. And it just, I don't know, the way that that whole scene plays out reminded me of like situations that I've been in real life where I was with people who were, you know, some of us in the group were pretty freaked out by something that we were seeing and others were unbothered by it. And the conversation all just felt exactly like that. It felt very real, very raw. Yeah, really good. I recommend watching it, certainly.
Nice. Yeah, it's on my list of movies I really need to watch, but I have not actually got around to it yet for one reason or another.
Yeah, it's one of those historic movies that, like, you know, whether you're going to like it or not, it's a good one to have seen, just so you can spot when other stuff is like, you know, making reference to it one way or another, or, you know, kind of like Halloween or Friday the 13th.
I gotta be honest, that is the reason I think that I haven't watched it yet. Is there's that untouchability that certain classics have, that it's like you're afraid to not like it, so you don't want to watch it, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I think I really would enjoy it, there's just this part of me that's like, but it's so much to
there's so much
it's
expectation.
much like whenever anyone recommends a movie to me, there's now this expectation of they think I would like it, and I don't want to watch it because it's too much pressure. You know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Especially because people are, I don't know if this happens to you, but people are like constantly telling me
really bad.
People are constantly telling me that I would like something. And 90%, I'm being conservative here, 9 times out of 10, I check it out and I don't care. So like, I don't know what anybody thinks that I like.
Very familiar with that sensation.
But
it's the reason it takes me so long to check out almost anything anyone has ever told me to look at.
Yeah.
Because there's this like caricature version of me that people are familiar with my interests. And they're like,
and he hates Poltergeist.
Noah, yeah, you love metal, so you'd love this. And then, you know, you recommend this like really weird out there thing to me, and I'm like, I don't like this at all.
Either it's really weird and really out there, or it's like the most pedestrian normie version of the thing, you know? Like somebody hears that you're listening to, like, I don't know, just to pull names out of a hat, somebody hears that you like the new Cannibal Corpse album or something, and they're like, oh, you like metal, huh? You ever check out Avenged Sevenfold?
I was about to say Metallica. I'm glad we're on the same vein. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where I worry anytime people recommend things to me, because I'm worried that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's okay that people do that. I'm glad that they take an interest in that, but
I would like to live for at least a few minutes in whatever world it is that they live in, so I can understand what they're thinking, but yeah.
But to get back to the movie thing, the reason I mentioned Blair Witch and Cannibal Holocaust together is because Blair Witch's actors were vaguely unknown at the time.
Yeah.
And they had a purposeful marketing campaign that led into, have you seen these actors?
Oh.
Implying that, yeah, no, it was a very intentional, these people are missing. We don't know what happened to them. It was the first, it was, because I mean, it's 99. Internet knowledge is at a low. It's brand new stuff for the most part.
Yeah, they're putting these people's faces on milk cartons.
No. It was an IMDb thing. Like, it was, the internet is around enough that it exists, but it's not around enough that we know like what a marketing tactic is. So you had like people being like, hey, these people are missing, and it turned into this wildfire thing that like spread like a crazy rumor that, hey, this movie actually has like missing people in it. This was actually real found footage, because you didn't have the same kind of, like, Cannibal Holocaust existed, sure, but it's an Italian film from the 80s. Not a lot of people in America are going to know about it.
Right.
Blair Witch comes in and they start this massive guerrilla marketing campaign that makes this movie explode.
How about that? I did not know
the movie only cost $300,000 to make, and it made $248.6 million.
And them's $1999.
Exactly. Like the incredible level of this movie taking off like it did.
Yeah.
Dead insane. They literally had posters for everyone, and the county that they allegedly went missing in, contact the sheriff's office, yada yada yada. That like this was a whole thing.
Whoa.
It was a big deal.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was a huge element of, I don't know, the whole deal that helped kick off this found footage craze. Companies saw, oh, they had this really shitty camcorder and it was 3 people in the woods and they made this thing happen.
Yeah. Well, and the bigger thing that a production company notices is we only need to put $300,000 into it and we get, how many million did you say?
240
something million back. That's such a massive return on investment that's the huge thing that production companies really took notice of, because horror's always been kind of a, you know, low input, low budget kind of a genre historically, ever since like slashers through the 80s and stuff. Those things were all made for like nickels and then made millions of dollars afterwards. So that's a way to cheat that even more is great news for the people who want to make money off of movies.
Yeah, so this movie made 829 times its budget.
That's so much.
Isn't it? That's a lot.
That is so much.
It's a lot. So companies see this kind of return, and I mean, we're to pull us back to post 9/11 America. We are in a culture that is leaning full force into horror movies. The Saw franchise takes off during this.
That was when Saw came out roundabouts, huh? That was what, 2004?
2004.
Yeah.
Rode that wave to the end. And a lot of like early 2000s, say what you will about it, because, you know, the early 2000s had a lot of remakes and a lot of like less thought through movies that people just in general, everyone can agree kind of sucked.
Sure.
But it was a really huge like decade for horror. New movies were coming out constantly, whether they were new plots or not really a big deal. We kept getting more and more movies. You discover more and more directors that use their remake money to go off and make their own projects they cared about.
Right.
You know, you have people just exploding left and right with this kind of stuff.
In the mid 2000s, there was an entire wave just of like J-horror remakes.
Oh yeah. Japanese horror is huge in the 2000s in Japan and in America simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's dead insane. But we're going to focus mostly on the found footage element. And there are a lot of terrible found footage movies that have come out. I'm not going to sit here and try and tell anyone that found footage is, as a genre, a perfect thing
it's the
at all.
Thinking Man's subgenre, really.
It like found footage blows a lot of the time. There's a lot of
so
very bad movies in there.
So terrible.
And I gotta be honest. Let me look something up real quick.
What's that?
I just want to look up found footage movies again real quick, just to I want to try and find something that was from in between 99 and 2007, and I'm not finding it. I'm not finding anything really. This was not intentional, skipping over such a huge section of the decade, but it unfortunately happened. So here we are. There's not much to be done.
There was a wave of them, enough that the genre had become like hackneyed and almost died down by the time Paranormal Activity came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, at that point, we're looking at found footage as a genre had just kind of burnt out already.
Yeah.
But I have 2 movies that we're going to throw up that came in 2007 that I think helped revive the scene.
Actually, Paranormal Activity got its widespread release in 2009.
Really?
Yeah, it was made in
Well,
2007, and it took a really long time for Oren Peli to shop it around and get somebody to buy it to be able to actually distribute it. And actually, there's a really funny story about him going to Miramax and talking to Jason Blum before Blumhouse
oh my
was a
gosh.
thing. This is one of the events that led to Blumhouse existing, actually.
Really?
Because, yeah, Jason Blum was a senior executive at Miramax, I think. One of those kinds of titles.
Yeah.
And he basically sat down with Oren Peli and was like, listen, I love what you have here and I really want it to do well, but I cannot do anything with you right now at this company. So Jason Blum went around with Oren Peli going to other companies to try and get somebody to buy it to distribute it.
I love that.
And yeah, and that was what led to Jason Blum starting Blumhouse, because he wanted horror directors to have some place that they could go when other large publishing houses wouldn't take them.
And say what you will about Blumhouse movies, but
he's given
we've
people
gotten
the money
some really
to make
amazing
movies.
directors out of that. When we've gotten a lot of bad movies, but the movies that a lot of these directors have gone on to make from their initial, oh, just another Blumhouse type of movie, has been. I don't want to credit him with like the reason that horror is as big and developed as it is now.
Sure,
but he's a huge stepping stone.
Well, but like he's just making sure that the genre stays alive more or less, because
he's just throwing money at it.
Yeah, just putting more movies out in the genre is going to keep it good. Even if the bulk of them are terrible, there's still going to be that 1 out of 10 that's really good and adds a lot to the art form, you know?
If the movie you spent $3 million on turns around and makes $10 million, it's not a huge return, but it's still 3 times what you put in, and then you can fund 3 more $3 million movies.
Oh, sure.
And one of them might end up blowing up. Like whoever bought Paranormal Activity, that movie cost $15,000 to make, and it made so much money.
Yeah, it made so much money.
Paranormal Activity made $193.4 million.
That is.
I'm not going to do the math on that one because I don't think I need to.
That is so much.
It's just like, no, I'm going to do the math on that one. I'm actually very curious.
I'm not even. Well, it's going to bother me if I don't. So
it made 12,893 times its budget back.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's dead insane. But before we hit that one, because that kicked off in 2009, I'm now learning. Let's talk about Rec. Rec comes in with my personal favorite subgenre of found footage, which is documentary crew.
Yeah.
It starts out as someone who's just doing a local news story on a fire station.
It's a news story even.
Yep, it's just a fluff news piece that they were putting in about their news station or about their fire station.
And what, then the firefighters turn out to be murdering people, or?
No.
Oh.
Better, actually. They're
Satan worshippers.
Yes, every single one of them.
Whoa.
So you have like some really like straightforward good stuff. They actually so this is a film in Barcelona. They actually had, I believe.
Aren't you supposed to list
talk
that?
out my ass
Is
here?
That the right Barcelona. Way to say it? Barcelona.
Yeah, Barcelona.
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Okay. Why is that?
There's
you wouldn't know that. Why am I asking? There's no reason for you to know the answer.
I do not know.
Noah, known Spanish speaker.
Okay, so yes, okay, I did think I knew this correctly.
Lately?
So the lead in Rec, Manuela Velasco.
Yeah.
Velasco. She is a TV personality already. She's a TV hostess and actress.
Oh.
And they brought her in for Rec as this TV host who was coming in and doing a story. Oh. It was a really fun, like down to earth moment. And there's a fire call at an apartment building. They go in there and then the Spanish police seal off the entire building to quarantine them. There's actually an American remake of this movie called Quarantine.
Oh.
Borderline shot for shot remake.
Well, that is annoying.
One of those things where it doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
And as the movies split off, Quarantine 2 and Rec 2, like they went in vastly different directions.
Well, okay. At least they became creative at some point.
Yeah. But Rec is one of the found footage series that like a lot of people look up to as, wow, look at that. Because the first one, borderline flawless. Very, very good movie.
Okay.
And helped us develop a fresh, a cleaner presentation of found footage. Because a lot of found footage has boiled down to shitty film school friend who just doesn't know how to turn off his camera.
Right, of course.
But now we got to move on to something where it's like, hey, we have more professional lighting for a lot of it, at least, not the whole movie, but for a good chunk. You have more professional sounding audio. You have a nicer looking camera.
Right.
Things move on. Things work out better.
And it's directed by Paco Plaza, which is a very familiar name to me, and I'm going to look him up to see what of his stuff I have seen.
There you go. Go for it.
Because I recognize that name too much. Oh, he directed Veronica.
Oh, that makes sense, actually. That actually makes a lot of sense. Veronica was okay.
It was okay. They did that. Well, we're talking about. He also did Quarantine, apparently.
Wait, he also was the one who directed.
He just
Quarantine?
made the remake of his own movie. What?
That's actually dead hilarious.
Let me
I forgot
look
about
further
that.
into this. Yeah, but like the way Veronica did that weird. We were talking about marketing stuff, and Veronica did that. All that weird thing where they created all that fake hype.
I'm
it being
so
terrifying
angry at myself for falling for that hype.
Well, I mean, it's not though when we watched it, we were like, oh my God, this is terrifying. You know, we were watching it and we were like, well, this is okay, but it's pretty underwhelming given the hype.
But that's the reason I watched it.
It was the reason. Yeah, it worked.
I had bought into the hype. I was excited. And then next time I saw that, I'm like, well, that's fake.
Okay, so it looks like he didn't direct Quarantine. He was just involved in the making.
Well, that's nice though. I'm glad that he was brought in.
Like he gets credited because Quarantine is based on Rec, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It would have been so funny if he would have just turned around and made the remake of his own movie. I would have laughed.
That would have been really funny. But yeah, next up we have Cloverfield. Biggest budget movie on our list with $25 million. This was
it's a lot of money for a found footage movie.
Produced by J.J. Abrams.
And that explains it.
Yeah, you know, I don't like J.J. Abrams. I'm not
a fan.
But anyway, this is a huge money entrance into found footage. It's, you know, and a lot of that went into their special effects. You had a lot of the footage was pieced together from like various cameras. You had things going. Oh, that was another thing, actually. Multiple cameras. That's something that we get to have added in some of these movies.
That's in Blair Witch Project, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rec had police body cam, firefighter body cam, in addition to news station cameras.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's cool, right? You got some options going on, and Cloverfield worked with that as a let's piece together the bad thing that happened.
Yeah.
So that's like launching it again. I feel like Cloverfield helped kick off renewed interest in the genre, because we had Paranormal Activity kick it off in like a big way for like the down to earth version of it.
Yeah, the actual
Paranormal Activity, or not Paranormal Activity, Cloverfield is out here like, hey, you can throw money at this too, but money, I don't think it's fair to say that money made the movie better than any of these other found footage movies, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. More money into a found footage movie doesn't always lead to a better product. And I mean, who knows how much of that is because of J.J. Abrams, but whatever.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of possibilities here, but I don't know. I don't know much about Cloverfield. I got to be honest. I'm not interested in watching it. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. I've never seen Paradox. I've never seen Cloverfield. It's not a movie that is interesting to me.
I watched the Cloverfield Paradox, but that's the only one that I've seen.
I've heard that was bad.
It is, but it doesn't take itself super seriously, I don't think. So I was able to look past. I mean, it's got that one guy from the IT crowd in it, so I wasn't going to take it seriously anyway.
Fair enough.
Every time his face is on screen, I'm just laughing at him. So like, I don't know. It felt like kind of just a sci-fi parody kind of thing, which I don't think is quite what it was intended to be, but it was how I watched it, and I had a good enough time with it.
Fair enough. So let's see. You requested we put Troll Hunter in here.
Troll Hunter. It is another documentary style. It's focused on a group of student filmmakers who are trying to investigate the effects of like poaching on the local wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
And they encounter a guy who secretly kills trolls for the government. And it is, if you watch it, just like, you know, you read the subtitles and such, and you just watch it as like a found footage, like fantasy movie kind of, it's definitely not horror, right? But if you watch it as like a found footage modern fantasy movie, it is really entertaining. But the more interesting thing is that like in Norway, it's considered to be a comedy. And the guy that plays the troll hunter guy is like, I guess culturally, he's like equivalent to like Will Ferrell, basically. So I don't know. I get a real big kick out of watching and trying to look for the comedic elements that might kind of go over your head that get lost in the translation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of fun. And also, even not knowing about that stuff, it's just a good watch. I think it's a very fun movie. I think it's really good.
Nice. Yeah, that peppered that one in there for like an angle of found footage where like a mockumentary documentary style thing.
Yeah. Well, and also just not horror. It's not exclusively
not horror.
It doesn't have to be exclusively a horror subgenre. It can be used for other things.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, I have not seen a lot of non-horror found footage.
I don't know that
it is out there.
Exists,
There's another one out there that's like a superhero movie that's found footage.
Chronicle,
where it's
right?
like some films. Yeah, Chronicle. So like that exists, and that's not really a horror movie either. So like you could do stuff with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that you can do. I think it would be really interesting if like I don't know, maybe the Jessica Jones angle of Marvel would have tried for something like that at some point. I think it could have been really cool.
It could have been a good time.
I don't want them to do it now, but
no, it's too late.
Yeah, I don't want them doing most things. Let's be real. But
mm-hmm.
Moving on
to the next movie, I have VHS in here. VHS, I wanted to make sure we mentioned because VHS is an anthology movie, which anthology movies, you know, are hit or miss for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like the fact that with a horror short, you have to get launched in midway through the story and pick it up for the ending because that's how shorts are, you know?
I personally am a big fan because I think there's a lot of horror story concepts that work really well for a short, but don't do quite so well when you try to stretch it into a full length.
Yeah, like Lights Out. I haven't seen the movie, but I love the short. And I can't imagine how they would make that short into anything bigger.
Uh-huh.
You know?
I've not watched
it's
either,
really good.
so but okay.
It's a very frightening short. It's very good at what it does.
Okay.
But yeah, I like VHS a lot. I like the fact that it's an anthology that has a core thing, because if you're not familiar with VHS, the gist of it is each movie is someone investigating or being after something. And then they find the VHS tapes, they put the tape in, and you watch the tape with them. And then the rest of it, like the first one is these 4 guys who steal things, beat people up, and they film it while they do it, and they put it online. They're hired to steal a VHS tape, and it turns out the guy has hundreds upon hundreds of VHS tapes, and they're looking for a specific one, so they pop them in, and they're like looking for it.
Huh.
And then each tape has one of the shorts on it, and each short is a found footage short. There's some really good ones in there. I like it a lot. But you know, you get to enjoy a variety of found footage styles in those,
which is pretty cool. I think that's The found footage genre itself, I think, even lends itself well to shorts. Because
It does.
lots of
It's-
times you don't want to sit through the whole, hey, we're making a documentary. Oh man, I got to film everything. The whole setup. You
Exactly,
know,
and
so
that-
many times,
that's
so
something
often,
that I
found
don't
footage
enjoy.
movies, you got to sit through like an hour of hapless film students attempting to make a documentary before you get to the part where things start getting weird and they get freaked out, and then the bad stuff happens finally. And it's there's just so much waiting through it to get to the stuff that you came for.
At flip side, one movie that does that vibe very well, though, is Creep. Now, I know you haven't seen Creep yet.
I've not seen most of the movies on this list. I'm not sure if you've noticed.
Fair enough. Creep is really worth a watch. Creep is a guy who responds to a Craigslist ad of a guy who's just like, hey, I'll pay you some money. I need you to film me.
Oh, see, I thought it
And,
was a documentary about Tom York from Radiohead.
It would be
Because he is,
worse
of course,
if that was
a
it.
creep, a weirdo. I mean, what the
yeah,
hell
no, that
is
would
he
be a
doing
much
there?
worse movie.
He doesn't belong there.
Yeah, so Creep, the guy's just like, I need you to film me constantly for a whole day, 2 days, something like that. And he was going to give him like this absurd sum of money.
Pretty weird.
And yeah, it's the unease that the movie builds is very good in a way that you couldn't do, in my opinion, in a non-found footage movie. You very much feel how the main character, Aaron, feels just uncomfortable as everything builds up. It's like you get to a point where it's like, well, you know, I can't really leave now because it just feels awkward.
Yeah.
I can't just stop because
Like, I'm too far in. I'm committed to finishing now. And
exactly. And the whole thing plays on and it just gets worse and worse. It's a very wonderful example of found footage.
huh, all right.
I'm realizing what a lot of what this episode is going to turn into, since we're already running long, is just me going through a list of found footage movies I found to be very good and saying this is what I like about them. So yeah, as above, so below.
So anyway, we're going to keep doing that.
Exactly. As Above, So Below is one of the other higher budget movies that we have on here, and there's not a lot visually going on. There's some very good effect moments and things like that, but for the most part, what you can pull out of this is they spent that budget on recording in the actual Paris catacombs. That's your
Which is
trivia. This is, if not
terrifying.
the first movie, it's one of the first movies to be permitted by the government to record there. Dead insane. But this is one of the movies where it's like, you always need a reason to record. And that's the big flaw for found footage movies, is like, you need to have an excuse. There has to be one. And man, you really don't want to have someone say, hey, why are we recording? Or why are you recording right now? Or, Jack, you've got to keep recording this. You can't let this be lost. You know, you don't want to have that moment if you can avoid it.
But so many movies have that exact moment.
Exactly. And it's something that I'm very happy that this movie didn't do, because everyone on the team had a camera. They are illegally in the movie. They are illegally going through these tunnels looking for the Philosopher's Stone.
Is there any reason to believe that the Philosopher's Stone would be down there?
Yeah, there's greater context in the beginning of the movie where they're illegally in a different tunnel.
Oh, but it's not a thing that people think in real life.
I have no idea.
Because
It
I've
could
never
be.
heard of this before.
I haven't either, but our main character has reason to believe that the next step to it or something is in the catacombs, and they're brought down there. It's a really
Okay.
good time.
Pretty cool.
Very good watch.
I've been
Personal
hearing about
opinion.
it
A lot
since
of
it
people
came
don't
out.
like it. It's claustrophobic. It's good. It does a really good job of inserting music and a soundtrack into a found footage movie, which is a huge thing
Oh.
that found footage movies don't have.
Right.
You don't have music because why would there be music playing?
Right. You wouldn't put music
You don't get a
onto it.
soundtrack. So all soundtracks in found footage movies are going to be diegetic. Is that the word?
Diegetic.
Diegetic. There it is. I'm like, diabetic. No, that's not right.
They're all going to be diuretic.
soundtrack. And when they're in the catacombs, there's a whole lot of like chanting and choir stuff. going on that's just echoing around the tunnels, so you don't realize it's music,
Oh,
but every now and then you do.
that's
It's-
creepy.
It's very good. It adds to the vibe of everything in a great way.
Pretty cool.
Now, these are all, as much as a lot of these help change the genre, a lot of these are really straightforward movies. So the last two I'm going to mention on this list are Unfriended and Host. Say what you will about Unfriended. It wasn't that great. The sequel was better,
Okay.
but the whole
Refriended?
vibe is that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The sequel, Refriended?
No, it's Unfriended Dark Web, actually, which makes me want to hate it a lot.
Oh,
But
third page of Google search results, huh? That's what they should have
Exactly.
called it. Unfriended, third page of Google.
But yeah, the entire premise of Unfriended is that you're watching an entire movie over someone's like Skype screen,
Uh-huh.
which is a really interesting concept. It's just a computer screen, but the issue ends up being like some of the stuff becomes a little unbelievable. Like why are you seeing certain things? It doesn't
Yeah.
work out in the same way.
Well, you've got to have
It's
a
one-
reason for your character to be on the call for the same reason that you've got to have a reason for someone to be filming everything for a documentary. And I feel like that's a little bit of a more rickety situation that you get yourself into, because people don't spend that much time on Skype calls in their day typically.
Exactly. And there's plot reasons, but that's one of the reasons that the movies kind of sucks.
Right.
However, Host takes the same concept of a bunch of people on a Zoom call, but they make it a reason that everyone has to stick around. They decide to do an online seance.
Aha.
You can't break the circle. But they let people leave. People leave at one point during it. Some people come back. There's a moment where like everything stops and someone steps away from their computer and is just muted in the background on the phone.
Oh,
The entire
what
thing
happens
was
in real
actually
life.
filmed over Zoom.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really nice, and it provides a good way to hide your cuts by just focusing on someone's camera as the full screen. You cut back to someone else. Now you've cut the camera. You can, rather than do glitchy jump cuts, which is something that they decided they really were going to try to avoid as much as possible.
I respect that choice a whole awful lot.
If there is one thing that you take away from this babbling about found footage, please watch Host. It was birthed in quarantine over Zoom by a bunch of VFX people who worked on movies outside of this.
Okay.
But it's a bunch of VFX people who were stuck in a house together, like several houses together, that they just made this movie over Zoom.
That's pretty cool.
Right?
That's innovation right there.
Dead fantastic. Incredibly pleased. Couldn't recommend checking it out more. And that's our really shitty timeline of big moments in found footage over the last 40 something years. More realistically over the last 20 something years.
Yeah, that's when most of it has happened. So
There's a lot more movies than I've mentioned. Hell House, for example, that we were watching is a movie that I would put on here just as a personal favorite, not as a like big moment maker or anything.
right. It's not like hugely well known.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like if you're in the community, you know it, and you probably have like some opinions about it one way or another.
Yeah.
But it's not the same like cultural thing as Paranormal Activity. Everyone knows about Paranormal Activity.
Everybody
Everyone knows about Blair
Paranormal
Witch.
Activity. Yeah.
Like these are movies that made big headlines and everyone knows about them.
Right.
But whatever. No, one of the big things that I want to talk about now that we're out of just a big list is there's 4 subsets of found footage movies. Right?
Right.
And all the movies
know
that we just
that, of
listed
course,
fall into Say again?
I know that, of course, but why don't you tell our viewers?
We've got shaky cam found footage. That's what Blair Witch is. It's some people in a camera, and it's found footage in a pretty pure form.
Yeah.
Then you've got documentary found footage. You got some people and they set up a camera and they're like, this is someone's documentary that was never aired because then they died.
And that's a great way to
also
have a little bit of better production values, have a better camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get the excuse of good lighting, good camera, better audio in general, and you get to have some fun lighter moments where you have someone talking about their experience, and then you get some little moments where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm so awkward with this thing. I don't you get some nice behind the scenes conversation that can help flesh the world out and make it feel more like a real place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always very interesting. You also have security cam. So Paranormal Activity works in this department more, where it's some asshat with a camera.
Right.
And also you have security cam footage mixed in. These are really fun because you get to have labeled cameras is my favorite part of it, right?
That's
you have
not
someone
with
the main camera, and then you get to have security 3, or in the case of Rec, where you have body cams, it's cameras and names.
Right. That's not in the first Paranormal Activity movie, though. Is that in the sequels?
I have no idea about that. I just mean like security cam insertion in general.
Right.
Comes with that ability and happens more often. It's kind of like how some have the runtime in the bottom or the date in the bottom, things like that.
I really hate that. It's like, yeah, okay, you told me that some dude is holding this camera. You don't have to throw this stuff up on the screen to convince me that it's a regular camera. Like, come on now.
It's like, I get it. It's a VHS camcorder from the 90s. Calm yourself.
Yeah.
But it works sometimes at like if it's up at the beginning and then it goes away as like things go on.
Yeah.
I like how it can help set a tone. It helps remind you that even though some things are going on that may make you feel otherwise, it's kind of a found footage movie.
Sure.
It's an opinion thing.
No.
I'm not right. I'm just thinking about that.
Sure. Now there is a fifth subset here.
I didn't even say the fourth subset.
What's that?
I didn't even say mixed footage yet.
Oh, you said security cam, and that's the one that's listed fourth on the.
Yeah, I went out of order because I like mixed footage the least, so I wanted to end on it.
But now but there's a fifth one that you forgot that is not going to land the same way. Well, that's disappointing.
Well, let's hear the fifth one because I'm interested.
Yeah, since we haven't heard the fourth one yet, here's the fifth one. You ever watch the movie Jerusalem, but it's spelled with a Z?
I haven't. I heard it was really bad.
It's so fucking
from you,
bad.
I think.
Yeah, probably from me because it's so bad. The whole movie is from the perspective of. Do you remember a few years back when Google Glass was a thing?
Oh yeah,
it's totally not Google Glass. It's they come up with some other stupid name for it, but that's the idea. It's the smart glasses that connect to your phone and have a camera on them. Everything is seen from the perspective of the main character's glasses. And
interesting.
And it's
I don't think I like that.
It's like
that's like body cam but bad. Like
it's
really
like
bad.
If somebody tried I'm trying to find a way to summarize the plot here. It's like if somebody tried to make a found footage version of a zombie movie, which sounds actually cool and like it could potentially be a good idea, right? Okay, but then they combined that concept with like Evil Dead and decided to really fuck it up. So it's like, it's not properly zombies, it's possessions of one sort or another. And they try to fit like this weird like end time revelation stuff into it, but then it's not actually anything that's found in that part of the Bible. It's just stuff that's like, hey, this is in the Bible somewhere, right? Remember that? And
remember when there were zombies in the Bible, eh, kid?
yeah, exactly. And it's like, and when the people get like infected, possessed, whatever, they wind up like vomiting worms up and sprouting wings and flying around. And the one thing that this movie did like okay is that toward the end, the main character, spoilers for Jerusalem with a Z. Don't watch it, but if you do, knowing things isn't going to change anything for you. The toward the end of the movie, the main character gets infected, possessed, however you want to say it, and the final shot of the movie is of like, you don't see anything, but like she starts to fly. And that's the like one thing that they actually did okay, is like the first and final shots of the movie are pretty good, because the beginning is like this more properly found footage thing where there's like a priest, a rabbi, and a Muslim priest. I don't know the proper word for that. Trying to deal with this girl who's been possessed by this whatever it is, and she's like, you know, screaming blasphemies at them and vomiting worms and such. And they're trying to do an exorcism, like the three of them together. And they end up just shooting her in the head because none of it works. And it's actually a really neat scene. I liked the way that they set that up a lot. But then the entire rest of the movie just sucks so bad. So watch it for the first scene, I guess, if you wanna. But yeah, that is the other the secret the secret found footage subgenre of totally not Google Glass.
I don't like that.
It's awful. You shouldn't like it. It's very bad.
See, here I thought I was about to drop in this cool take with mixed footage, found footage movies, where it's like some found footage and some regular filmed, and be like, Sinister is a mixed footage found footage movie.
Incorrect. It's a regular movie about finding the footage.
Yeah, it's Sinister is the movie that
it's the movie about the making of the found footage.
People make a found footage movie.
It's a finding footage movie.
Well, damn.
How incredible would it have been if they had made that into a found footage movie, and it was just like Ethan Hawke in his bedroom with a camera, and he's like, I found this projector in my attic. This is so crazy. That would have sucked. Oh man. Mixed footage.
Could have gone both ways. I don't know. It's a thing. Yeah, mixed footage movies. I was telling you about Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Yeah.
Which is a very enjoyable movie. All in all, mixed footage is like, it's kind of hit or miss, right?
Violently, I should think.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like something that's very easy to do wrong.
Yeah, I would say it very much is. But I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's just one of those things where like you want to mention it, but like, you know.
Yeah.
If I'm talking about found footage movies, I'm not talking about movies that have like a mix. I'm just talking about found footage movies.
Yeah. Just free range footage from the woods.
Yeah. I think that's about all I have to say about found footage, though, if we're being totally honest here.
Do you tend to like found footage movies? Would you say?
If you were to ask me that just a little bit ago, I would have said no. If you were to ask me that like last year or the year before, I would have told you flat out no.
Yeah.
But the more I've thought about it, the more I realize that I happen to run into a lot of really bad found footage movies.
Yeah.
That I just really didn't like. Like, same. I love Host. Host was my favorite movie of 2020. I mean, I didn't see a lot of movies in 2020.
It was either Host or Sonic the Hedgehog. What's your favorite movie of 2020? I know we all wanted Candyman,
I saw Underwater, Birds
yet.
of Prey, Host, and Fantasy Island.
Oh, that's right. Fantasy Island.
That was which I mean, Fantasy Island takes it away. It's no contest.
Oh, Fantasy Island sucked.
I'm really trying to condition myself to thinking Fantasy Island was like a slow burn favorite. by making these jokes, and I am worried that it will unironically become one of my favorite like bad choice
I
movies
think you're gonna
because I
taint
have a
your
lot of
memory
fond
of it.
memories of it.
You're gonna taint your memory of it to the point that you remember it being good, and then you're gonna watch it again and be like, "What was I thinking?" I rated this movie
I gave this
9
a 9.
stars. What happened here? I don't know. I feel like it's a slow burn comedy more than it is anything else.
Yeah, that's probably right.
It spends more time trying to be
But
funny than it does.
We
trying
gotta
to be
wrap this.
scary.
We gotta wrap this.
Yeah, we're coming up on time here. I have a tendency not to like found footage movies, as I talked about earlier. I've apparently seen all the worst ones and nothing else.
Apparently.
I don't expect that to change.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I've definitely seen some that do well with the concept and with the genre, but like, am I ever going to think that that's better than or even as good as just a regular production movie? Doubtful. If somebody's got a suggestion of a fantastic found footage movie that I need to watch that'll change my mind, send it to me because like I'll check it out. I'll give it a chance, but
You acting like I haven't told you just to watch Creep, As Above, So Below, and Host in the
you
same
acting
episode.
like it didn't take me 3 years to get you to watch The Black Coat's Daughter, 2 years to get you to watch The Big Lebowski, at least 6 months to get you to listen to Party Cannon. I mean, come on now.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But don't take my word for it. Put it off forever.
Yeah, I probably will check out some of the ones that we've got on this list here when I feel like
If you
it,
only
but-
check one thing out that I recommended, I would say have it be Creep.
Okay.
I think Creep will give you a truer found footage experience that you might associate with the genre more than Host or As Above, So Below, though both of those are so incredibly good.
Yeah, I'd say of everything, I'm probably most likely to check out As Above, So Below because I have legitimately had
So
that
good.
like on my list for a while now. I remember seeing the ads when it first came out and thinking that it looked interesting.
Mm-hmm. Very, very worth your time. I liked it a lot. Very worth your time.
Yeah. And you know what else is going to be worth your time is listening to the next episode of the Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies, when we talk about Hell House LLC next weekend.
I love it. It's a good movie. Falls into a cross between film school and documentary.
All right.
So I'm pretty happy with it. It's the general vibe of it is some friends get together and every year they build a haunted house and document what they do.
Pretty interesting.
And you know what? It's very worth watching. So
Yeah. And
that's
you're going to
all I've
hear
got
all
to
about
say.
what we all think of it on the next episode of the podcast.
I'm predicting now. I'm gonna like it. Nina will be ambivalent. Emma will dislike it, and you will like it. That's my prediction.
You think I'm going to like it? Bold.
I think if you liked The Houses October Built, I don't see why you wouldn't like this.
That was like a couple of years ago, though. I'm a different person now.
Damn, you right.
I don't know. And I have since been told that I am wrong to like it and that it's a bad movie. So who even knows?
Yeah, thank you very much for listening, everybody. Make sure to follow Casual Horror Pod to keep up to date on all the things happening. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day.
Woo!